Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another episode of a Stoked podcast live. I am writer, artist, podcaster, animator, frequent Comic-Con salesman, Javon O. Stokes. Also, I did host some panels this week.
Panels?
So, I was I was a host. I was a host. I'm gonna put that on my resume. Resume is
That's
growing.
That's the one I would like to put on mine.
It's growing. It's growing.
But I've hosted events, so I'll take it.
There you go. Listen, you've done a freaking Comic-Con. That's bigger than my freaking panel. That's way bigger than doing a panel. I'm Javon O. Stokes, and that is Jamari Stokes, frequent hater and educator of youth. Still scary. Welcome to another episode of the Stoked podcast. Glad to be here today. Glad to be here. I am tired, as I keep telling folks. The heat wave continues. I was just in Fan Expo Boston, which was great, and for 3 days this past week, and then next weekend I'll be at Plastic City Comic-Con. And then it's like rapid fire through until November. And then November, it kind of tails off. But if you haven't seen me yet, you got plenty of time. But anyway, we won't keep our guests waiting. And I just forgot how I pronounced his name. All right, I'm going to give it a shot, though. All right, ready? Our next guest is the creator and writer of Immortalis, an award-winning editor and founder of the Indie Comix Dispatch. During the day, he is editor-in-chief of Engineering Georgia magazine, and at night, he's a creator and marketing director for Wingless Comics. This man has 7 children. I am going to pray for him. I'm going to pray, and we will absolutely talk about that at some point, but I can't even imagine. At that point, that's a lot. It's a lot of kids. So he must be a man of great patience and great testicular fortitude. So let's give a Stoked podcast round of applause to Brett Hillesheim. I butchered the last.
So close.
The last
so
one.
Close.
I knew it. I knew it when I said it. Can you tell people how to pronounce your last name?
It's 3 syllables, but I always tell people it really, really doesn't matter to me. People have mispronounced my last name for forever, so I answered to whatever.
Okay,
I do have to say,
so close.
5 of my children are. So thank you. I would like to think I do have great testicular fortitude, and perhaps I do, but not when it comes.
I was going to say, even still, like that is to adopt them. That means you purposely went out of your way to get more children. Like you're like, this is not enough.
Not enough.
2 is not enough. Bring me more.
At what point do you start forgetting names? Just when did you?
Child 5. Like after that, it's like what's your birth? You start going through the role of the different kids, that you start including the dog, call out people's name. Yeah.
You keep a tattoo with the names on your arm.
You got to go with numbers
totally.
at a certain point. Like number 2. All right, come on. Number 2. Number 6. Come on over here. Oh my gosh. All right, welcome. Glad to have you on.
You for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. I didn't realize that you worked with Wingless until I was reading your bio. Because we've had Brian Lambert on the show.
Yeah.
So he's a friend of the show, and I was happy to have him on. But at Wingless, you guys are doing big things. But we're gonna go back, as always. I start every show with some variation of the same question for those that have never watched before. So if you've watched before, you know what's coming. If you don't, welcome. When did your love of comics begin?
Oh man, my real love of comics began in the 5th grade. I was homesick.
Okay.
I don't remember what I had. I think it was like a cold or strep throat or something from school. and my mom to entertain me. Like, this is not, she does not, but I must have been really annoying or something that particular sickness. And she went out and bought me a stack of comics, I guess, just to keep me busy. Or she felt really bad for how bad I felt. I don't know, but she bought me a stack of Superman, and I read that, hooked, and I've been a Superman fan ever since. And that love of Superman just blew up into love of most comics, really.
Okay, I mean, I know a lot of us that got our love from Superman. I was a big
Yeah.
Superman fan as a kid. Everybody wants to be Superman.
Yeah. No, the current stuff isn't great. What's that?
Well, I wouldn't say that. The new series that just started with, I think it is Jamal Campbell as the artist. I've heard really good things about it, but I'm trying to get back more into floppies. So I missed the jumping on points, and I'm waiting for the trade.
Yeah.
But anyway, we can get into that later. What about comics like enticed you? Like what fostered that love? Like, do you remember? Or
I don't really remember then. I think part of it was I was not a fast reader, and so my mom and my brother both very fast readers, and so they could take down a novel in a night, and I would be seeing 30 pages and feeling like words, right? Because they've just read this whole book, and I got 30 pages down. And so I think part of my love for comics is it makes story digestible, but you can see complex, really compelling, really cool stories through sequential art, and it's just a whole new avenue into storytelling and into devouring those stories as a consumer too. That's what keeps me coming back to comics now. I love a good graphic novel. I love a good trade paper. I can sit there at story, right? Still reader. So
I get that. I've always told people my favorite comic stories are the ones where I feel like I'm on a journey, right?
Yeah.
That's why you say graphic novels. I love them too, because it's like it's almost like you start at one place and then you end somewhere else, like a novel, like a real novel. So that's cool. Do you remember your first books that you love that you can recall? I really like this book.
There's of course Superman. So the ones that actually had really good stories that I was surprised at as a kid were the X-File comic books. I thought they'd just kind of be a spin-off of the TV series, but they're their own unique stories, and they had really different art and beyond the superhero-ness of comics. The X-Files comics were the ones that kind of showed me, like, you can tell some pretty strange and funky stories through comics. It doesn't just have to be superhero.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Jamari.
So you're talking about you go from Superman to X-Files. That's a definite jump in variety of genre. Were there any other genres or any other formats? Like, did you lean towards sci-fi, superheroes? Was there any fantasy mixed in there?
So my town at the time, smaller town, we did have a comic book shop of the first couple years, comic books by corner gas station, and so I'd go down there and I'd just buy whatever they had on the rack for the most part, because some months they'd get new comics and some months they wouldn't, and you just got I really, superheroes were not for them because that's just like easy sale, right? And so their spinner rack in the gas station was always full of superheroes. It was when I started being able to go to comic shop, which was actually half comic shop, half craft shop. So in the front there was a comic shop, in the back was a bunch of old ladies buying craft supplies. And so I kind of discovered the X-Files and some of the other kind of Elseworlds. DC used to do Elseworlds, kind of like Marvel's What Ifs. And so I love those stories of taking something people knew and twisting it into a totally different direction. Of course, I mostly got Superman comics. So as a
You
kid,
just aged yourself, though. You just aged yourself. Oh, I
I
walked
did.
down to the to the shop.
Yeah.
Got him off the spinner rack.
I remember the spinner rack, but for me it was the drugstore in town. My grandmother would go into the grocery store, and I grew up in a small town in Alabama for half of my life, and right next door was the pharmacy, and she would go in there. I'd be in the pharmacy, and I'd go through comics, and hopefully, in hopes someone would buy me one.
Yep. Yep. Stand there and read them, but you gotta. Nobody's willing to front that money. I remember
I bought so many.
that too.
I bought so many comics from the little spinner in the little this little thing downtown Hartford. I bought so many from them. They were just like, whatever, dude, read. They're like, go ahead, man, because they knew I was gonna at some point in a week or two. I was coming away with like 10 because they were what maybe not 50 cents. They were at least $1
It
something.
may have been $1.75 or 75 cents somewhere at that
Yeah.
point.
It was like $1.25, $1.75. That still boggles my mind when I think about like
It's crazy.
my comic book. I sold for $10. If someone told me back then you could sell a book for $10 and somebody wouldn't blink.
Yep.
That's the crazy part. People don't even blink nowadays. That's amazing.
No.
I don't know we'll never get back to that.
No.
Absolutely not, because $1 is worthless.
Well,
and at that time,
that's another thing.
it was printed on newsprint on the inside. You didn't have nice glossy paper covers. You had the cheapest paper they could find.
Cheapest paper.
Oh yeah,
It turn yellow.
Yeah.
It would remember it would turn yellow after it would just turn yellow.
The colors would be weirdly. Don't get a bad issue with messed up ink.
Yeah, because if they didn't get the lay right, you'd have the different colors everywhere. Yeah.
We had this. I don't remember who we just had on the show, but they were talking. I think it was last week or the week before. We were talking about how, like, I used to hate the way they used to color black people because it would be like green. It'd be like a puke green, or like it would be. I'd just be like, dude, like maybe one person in the world has that skin complexion. What are we doing? Anyway, well, we could go back. And I know you know Brett's he's on a time limit. I told him I'd get him out at a good time, but we got some time.
Oh yeah, we got.
How did you get from you're reading comics, you're enjoying it, to I want to make these?
So really kind of boiled down. It started before the pandemic hit. I was on Instagram of all places, and I started following some comic book collectors, and because I kind of got out of in a large way as an adult. You know, you start a family, you got kids coming on, and maybe you just kind of lose time. And so started settling down. Man, I really miss comics, and so I kind of started off by following just to kind of see what was going on in comics right now. And so I started finding people kept popping up in my feed because I kept seeing some of my children are Black, and so provide them with you know, good Black stories. And so I started trying to find Black comics for them to read, because when I was growing, and now there's Milestone again, but at the time there, so I was trying to kind of figure out what's the new Milestone. And once you start going down the path of Black comics, you very quickly end up at Indie Comics, because the mainstream he really didn't give a shit. And so I ended up finding Concrete, and then Brian Lambert with Wingless Comics, and a whole bunch of them. You know, we could go down the list, but Concrete was the first that I ordered. I ordered their trio pack of #1. I kind of got into the indie comic scene, and eventually Brian and I became good friends. And I thought, you know, like, I'm doing all this stuff by supporting these comics. Love this. This is fun. I could do this. So I texted Brian this idea for comic series and shit. And so I texted him, knowing Brian bullshit. Then he said, "No, I'm just joking." And then he said,
It
"So if
sounds
you
like
don't,
him.
yeah," he said, "if you don't take this, if you don't let me publish this idea, we can't be friends anymore." And so that's how we got here. And Brian walked me through everything, the process of the first issue, and the art team, the writing, the lettering, everything, and he helped walk me through it, and here we are.
How much of the actual process of creating a comic book script did you know beforehand, and what did Brian kind of walk you through?
So I knew a decent amount from Indie Comix Dispatch and interviewing creators there. I had picked up a lot, and then Brian had kind of let me, before I had pitched my idea to him, even he had sent me some Wingless scripts and said, "Hey, will you take a look at this?" And so I'm sure I'd heard about the structure, the pitfalls of writing a script, and from other creators, and so. But there, I've had a pretty good handle on script writing. But I don't know, maybe everybody has this problem. I want to still put in way too much dialogue, and sometimes you just got to step back and let the art speak. And if you eat 70 words of dialogue on a page, on a panel, maybe you're doing so I still have trouble with that, but that's things Brian said to me, like, "Dude, you got way too much dialogue." And so that was one of the pitfalls that I fell into, even though I knew that going into it, but you know all this. And Brian was like, "No, they don't."
Yeah, my key for that is I usually maybe write sparse dialogue in my initial script, and then when I give it away, when I go back to it, right? So like I finish the script and then I do like sparse dialogue, and then when I go back to it when they're doing lettering, then I'm like, okay, when I go back and look at the the art, when I get the artwork, then I'm like, all right, then I put in the dialogue, and then it's like, then I kind of figure out what I want to do from there, and what not to cover up, and maybe I don't need to explain. That's just how I do it. But I trust me, there are times where I get my soliloquy in, and then by the time I draw it, I'm like, dude, there's no room for this.
Yep, that's why I'm lettering issue 2. I'm like, "Oh, why the fuck did I make this sentence so long? Like, I need to cut that shit down." And so, like, I feel like I probably won't letter every issue, but lettering at least like gives you a good sense of how to cut that, because you have to as you fill it.
Oh yeah, learning how to letter definitely opened my eyes.
Yeah.
That was an eye opener. It was like, I get to the soliloquy and I'm like, I can't fit all this in here. I'm gonna cut half of this crap, and then we'll get back to it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jamari.
So, what was it that you had to specifically learn, and what part of the process which parts of the process have you taken part in so far with that since you started in?
I feel like I had to learn it all. I knew some about it from interviewing other, being in the comic creation process, like from pitch to final product. Every part of that issue 0 that we put out was a learning experience. Every part of it. We put out a 4-page issue 0 for free of Immortalis, and I think that doing a 4-page story like that really tests you to, can you say what you need to say? Can you tell a story 4 pages that entices people? And so doing it that way was almost like in comic creating, story writing, because why are you saying it this way when you could say it so much shorter than just let the art speak for itself? Panel, I knew from reading and from talking with other creators about how many panels we should page. But then once you're writing your script and you're like, oh shit, I'm already kind of out of panels for this page, like that really starts driving you. And then you're like, well, I could just make it longer. Then that takes more money that you then have to recoup afterwards. And so you kind of have to find that balance of telling the story in within your budget. And so that was all just learning experience right there of having to tell that story in the limited space, and then bringing somebody else completely new, somebody you don't know the equation, and trying to articulate your vision to them. That was a whole hell of a learning experience there too.
Okay, so now you're working with Wingless. Tell us about Immortalis, which you have a Kickstarter that's coming up. Are you okay with me showing this?
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I don't want you to come back. This was not done.
No. So
right.
This is the campaign page, and it tweaks along the way, but this is how it'll basically look. So Immortalis. So the big comic within Wingless Comics is obviously Brian Lambert's Justice comic. It's kind of the linchpin of the entire universe. Everything tied back to Justice in some way while we're mapping this comics universe. And so Immortalis is the early universe, as we call it, Wingless Comics universe. For Wingverse is our shorter way of saying. And Immortalis kind of tells about how the world that we see Justice in got in the first place. When fail? When did all this darkness come over? And Immortalis is a 4-part story that tells about the last Roman Emperor Constantine, from Constantinople. And in our story, there's fact, and then there's a lot of fantasy mixed in. And so Immortalis, already in issue 2, there's a few cameos. There's definite ties to the broader Wingless Comics universe. And as the series progresses up to issue 4, you'll see more and more and more of those tie-ins to the broader universe. And you'll begin to see, why are there vampires, and where the fuck did these vampires come from? You'll begin to see why the world is so dark, and why people are just using this at that point. And so kind of I don't want to say origins, the turning point in the Wingless Comics universe of where things went from light and towards a path of would be at today in our world to darkness in the Wingless Comics universe.
Okay, all right. I'm interested. I'm looking. Who's the artist for this?
Marcos Almeida, and I probably pronounced his last name wrong. He is the line artist, and then he does pencils and inks, and then Michael Woods does all the colors.
Awesome.
Yeah, Marcos.
I love the sword and sorcery.
Yeah, Marcos is new to this issue. We had a different artist on the first issue, and we just needed something a little more dynamic. Marcos really brings it to this issue. He did an amazing job on all lines and inks for issue 2. I can't wait to have him get started.
And this is a 4. How long is it ongoing, or is this? I'm sorry if my son was talking to me.
No, it's cool. If anybody understands, I do. It's a 4-part series. Now, that's not saying that characters might not evolve into the modern Wingless Comics uniform. We're still working all that out and how that could happen for some people. But it centers around the fall of Constantine, Lucas, even Zaganos, the bad guy, are all based on historical people. Now, we've taken liberty with who they are. Spoiler alert, they kind of Constantinople fall. The good guys in our story lose. Now, who's the good guy according to history? That's debatable. But in our story, the good guys lose, and that's just all history. So that's not really giving any big spoilers, but some things will carry forward into the modern universe.
All right, and before I let Jamari go, when is this scheduled to start?
Tuesday.
Or are you not sure yet?
No, Tuesday. We on Tuesday morning. Yeah.
Okay, Tuesday morning. What, you got to give me the link again, because you gave me the link for this.
So
do you have the link that people can
you
pre-launch? Or is this it?
No, this is the special preview link.
Yeah. Oh no, I got it. You got it. I got it. All right. There we go. It was further down the road there. That's all right.
If you go to winglessent.com/Kickstarter, it'll take you to the page.
Oh, hold on. Let's do it this way. We'll keep it scrolling. All right, there we go. Is this it right here?
Sure. There you go.
There we go. All right. Okay. Yeah, this is really cool. I'm excited. I'm gonna do my best to get there. And let me, you know what? While I'm talking to you guys, I will hit that notify right there.
There you go. We're almost at 100, and so we're trying to get to 100 before Tuesday.
All these good Kickstarters, man. You're killing my wallet.
I know. Trust me, man. I know.
and then I keep telling people I forget that I do it, and then I'll get a book at some point down the line. I'm like, I did. Oh, okay, sure, whatever. All right. All right, go ahead, Jamari.
It's an interesting choice. You're using a backdrop of real historical events. How was that just a time that you really wanted to play with, or just kind of happened to go with the idea that you had in general? What was the genesis of that?
So I've had this idea, a form of this idea for like 20 years since I was in college, and I was taking medieval history, and they were talking about the fall of Constantinople and how that really shifted power dynamics within like the church, and how the church was basically responsible for media. Yada. Professor one day, instead of just kind of have us read, he kind of took a dramatic sense about the fall of the city of Constantinople, and I was just like, man, that's a fucking cool story. Sorry, hope I can say the F word.
You're okay.
You're cool story. And had that in my head for like this story should be something. People don't know this story, and it's a really cool story. And so as I'm trying to as people are telling me like, Brett, what kind of story do you have to tell for comics? Well, you should make a comic, Brett. I had creator friends telling me that, and I was like, well, I've had this idea about Constantinople, and that's when I started kind of developing the idea in my head. I wrote some notes, kind of figured out if I told this what it needed to be. I didn't go in. I wanted my first to have a beginning and an end, and that's when I kind of got that 4 parts down. I went to Brian and said, "Here's the idea," and Andy, how you doing, man? He the idea, and it kind of fit almost too incredibly well into the Wingless Comics. We did some tweaking here and there to make it fit even better. But Brian and I, we love lore, we love mythology, and so anytime idea about how to further that lore and mythology of the Wingless Comics universe through Immortalis, we're both all in.
That sounds really that's cool, because that's, while we people like to use medieval elements, people don't necessarily go real history, at least for your at least for your setting like that. So I think it's interesting. And at least from the basis, it almost makes me think Assassin's Creed in a way, for the they get the gamer in me at least sees connections there. So that's I enjoy.
I could see that.
I always appreciate when people don't go directly to superheroes, the irony being that I do superheroes, because there's such a market. There's a big market for non-superhero stuff on the indie scene. Like,
Mhm.
I'm at cons, I'm asking people, do they read superheroes? And a lot of people say no. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, what do you read? And then they tell me, and I'm like, you know what? That's actually something I would read too.
Yeah.
And so, it's always good to see um um other people branch out that way. I mean, myself, I keep telling people I got a horror comic that's just sitting in my computer waiting to be drawn. So it's always good to see somebody, other creators take another road and tell other stories
Well,
that
I was
are
so
nice to see.
I was so afraid of telling a superhero story, and I was totally afraid that I would just be another Superman or another Iron Man, and I wanted to do something different because I didn't want to just do the same old superhero story. Now I love a good superhero, but I was afraid I would fall in that genre of just this is just Superman by a different name type thing. I wanted to get something else under my belt first so that I could have all the experiences of creating a comic and editing a comic and all that and know that this wasn't a copycat.
Right. Which is good, which works for me. And I can only speak for me. So go ahead, Jamari.
No, like I said, it sounds like a really cool idea. I'm because like I'm getting different vibes on. So this is a vampire story, or at least partially.
So there's a lot of supernatural shit going on, and so
Okay.
there's vampires, there's demons,
Mhm.
and then there's angels. Justice makes a cameo in issue 2, and so heaven versus hell and everything in between. And in issue 1, I will admit, it's in issue 1. You got to kind of have to set up the plot, set up the characters. It's not as fast as I would have liked. Issue 2 running, and it's hard and fast, and you get a lot of battle scenes, particularly naval battle scenes in this issue. You start to see the different forces at play here. Some hell, you get the not some hints of beyond hell happening, and this too, like justice.
So now that you've definitely dipped your toes in something different and unique,
Mm-hmm.
or so. Do you think you will go into a more traditional route like a superhero at some point, or do you think you will do something else that you have another idea boiling and you don't have to give it away, but it maybe there's a genre, maybe there's some sort of world that you want to play in?
Yeah, so the next thing I'm actually already working on, slowly, but is a kind of a geared more towards kids, young kids, and it's called Amelia and the Orc. It's a fantasy story. It's based on the 4 kids siblings in it are based on my 4 younger kids, and kind of it's a fantasy story. I don't know that if I have a good idea that I know is a good idea for a superhero, I will dive into it. Otherwise, I'm just happy reading other people's great superhero stories. And so I love a good sci-fi story. And so I see myself kind of probably sticking in those 2 genres, but we'll see.
Well, there's so many. I mean, if I'm being honest, there's so many superhero books
Yeah,
out there. And, it's kind of hard to distinguish yourself. Like anybody, it's hard to anybody distinguish themselves when
yeah.
there's so many, which is why, you tend to see the ones that are kind of like a little different, like, Greg Elise,
Mm-hmm.
his book,
Is Nana.
where is Nana? Sorry, I was
Yep.
about to call it
Yeah.
the other one. The Were Spider. When you see who's Hi Diggs, BTW7. I don't know who that is. That must be. I mean, it must be new. Welcome. But anyway, there. See, I like to see like the ones that are a little different, get a little more shine.
Mm-hmm.
So, have you run into any kind of roadblocks or anything that you had to overcome to get to the point where you're publishing? If so, what were they?
I mean, one kind of, I wouldn't call it a roadblock, but definitely maybe pothole difficulty. Just the size of our family, like finding quiet time to sit down and write, finding quiet time to work on stuff. Was definitely for issues 0 and 1 was definitely a roadblock. Or I wouldn't say roadblock, because to me that's like, but that's just one of life's little difficulties that I had to figure out. I had to figure out how to write when surrounded by children. Now, between issues 1 and 2 here, I started having some medical. So I actually was recently diagnosed with young onset, which I appreciate the young part, Parkinson's disease.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. But medicine is slowly taking care of it. But there's a real time there where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Did I want to keep creating? Did I want to keep putting that energy into it? And I just kind of finally decided it was important to me. And no matter what the future brought with Parkinson's, I wanted to spend my time both reading great stories and creating great stories.
That's awesome. And I'm sorry to hear about your diagnosis, but I'm glad you kind of it's motivating you to be creative. I mean, it's a really hard thing to do when you're in a negative space, to kind of be as positive as you appear to be. So
after a lot of processing,
I believe it. I believe it. But I'm glad to see you're in a good space.
Thank you.
Very glad.
Thank you.
So I understand about trying to write with kids. Like my son is, when I'm here with my son, it's kind of hard for me to be in the headspace to write.
Yeah.
So usually that's when I take the time to do like panels, like describing panels. I just go back to stuff I've already written, punch it up a little bit, so I don't have to think too hard.
That's smart.
But I can't even imagine. So let's talk about, you're a big fan of comics. What are you reading right now?
Oh gosh, right now I just finished Cthulhu Invades Wonderland.
Okay.
I like a good anthology, and so I that's kind of popular right now, and so I read that. I read Sheriff of Babylon by Tom King recently.
Okay.
That was a great story. I'm reading a lot of graphic novels. I have so many individual books from indie creators just stacked up that I need to dive back into. One of the series, I think they actually have a Kickstarter right now, but Immortal Era from Edward Davis. It's a great series, and he just keeps popping books out. I have no idea how he does it, but I think his Kickstarter is for book 8, maybe 9, and so
he Kickstarters every book.
Yeah, every book.
We just had somebody on, and I was just like, I don't know how people do that.
I know.
That just seems like a lot to me.
This is only my second comic book Kickstarter. We did a Kickstarter for Indie Comix Dispatch, on C3, but comic book Kickstarters are exhausting. And I keep trying to figure out ways to bundle multiple issues into one Kickstarter, but I just don't think I'm there yet.
And it's nerve-wracking to me.
Yeah. Like all your worth is summed up in this little ticker on the Kickstarter.
And then, for me, he is. But for me, at least, it's like I always get frustrated because I'll look and see like somebody will do a Kickstarter and they'll be like, "Oh, we're funded by 3 p.m. after we live," and I'm just like, man, I'm still I'm sitting at $600. Come on, man. Like,
yep.
And I'm always wondering what I did differently, and I know I have a few to do next year, but I am not looking forward to it. So more respect to people who are doing them consistently.
Yeah, it's exhausting. I'm completely with you there. It's so exhausting.
So it sounds like you are more of an independent comics guy as opposed to the big two.
I am now. Yeah. I haven't gotten a big two in a while. I last thing I got was probably right after the pandemic through 2020. I kept getting my Superman subscription, and then that series kind of went off the walls, and so I stopped, and I just put all my money towards independent creators or buying graphic novels. And the I have not been disappointed. Well, that's a lie. I'm disappointed that indie creators can't get more books out faster. I completely understand why. I think I knew what happened next, because some of the best stories you can read right now, I feel, are in the independent comic books.
Yeah, I find that. Well, I mean, I know a lot of like readers are hesitant with indie books because they don't know when the next one will come out. And I get that. I get it. I know for me, I work relatively slow because I have other stuff going, and I know you do, and I know other people. You know, most independent people have full-time jobs. You know, so it's always kind of hard. And, you know, one day we'll all get to the point where we can crank out books every month.
All we need is a really good angel investor to give us each like $5 million. You know,
hey,
that's all we need.
Somebody just won $1 billion. I propose we track him down and find out.
Look, if it was
much
me,
he
you
loves
would
comics.
not find me.
No.
Hey, I've said that on more than one occasion. Listen, you people would know where I am, but you wouldn't know I won $1 million. I would just not tell.
Just keep on going.
Just keep on going. Now stuff would start to get a little nicer around me. Like, oh, you got a nice little car there. Oh, look, you just put on an extension to your house. Oh yeah, I got a raise at my job. I'd be lying through my teeth. But yeah, and that getting money is the big motivator, is the big enabler. It is what it is. But I understand. Like, I know for me, I've just started buying stuff from the big two because before I was so into indie books, and I think a big part of that had to do with because I knew so many people making them. So it was like, oh, I know this person. They made this. I'll support them.
Yeah, and it's hard to like you said, when you know somebody, not support them on Kickstarter. So listen, friends, if you're out there watching, Tuesday's your day.
There you go.
But then you get their book and it's good most of the time. It's really good, and then you're like, shit, like there's more of this stuff out there, and slowly you just stop caring about the big two. That's what happened.
It's a rabbit hole.
It is.
It really is a rabbit hole because I mean, I didn't know anybody in the black, especially in the black indie community. I didn't know anybody until I met Greg Burnham. And then once I met Greg Burnham, Greg then led me to this person and then this person. And it was like once you made friends with one on Facebook or Instagram, then it was like they all popped up. And it was like, it's like, oh, they're everywhere. All right. I'll make friends with all of you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jamari.
So if you are allowed to work on a big two property, no questions asked, which is the one you're picking?
Nostalgia in me wants to say Superman. Because I'm such a Superman fan for so long. It would probably be Superman. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that would kind of sneak in. Ask themselves different Stokes.
Listen, Kevin Chapman.
Kevin.
We're gonna block you in a second.
Daddy.
We're gonna block you. We're about 2 seconds away from blocking Kevin Chapman. All right.
Under
behave
Kevin
yourself.
Chapman. Good series.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with Superman just for nostalgia's sake. It would be Superman or Justice League. if there would happen to be a Justice League title running.
Who's your Justice League roster? I'm gonna give you 7 characters. You get to have a team of 7.
Okay, this is going to show when I was big into comics, because I was around for the boot where they basically killed off all the shitty members of the Justice League, and they brought
Wow, Morrison, yeah.
So Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, Cyber, Flash.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Cyborg. I don't know if I'd have Cyborg. That's just me. He's a Teen Titan to me. He'll always be a Teen
That's
Titan.
fair. That's fair. I remember.
But that's your list. That's your list.
Yeah. But I like Cyborg.
I like him too. I just like him as a Teen Titan. I felt like he was shoehorned in.
That's fair.
Then they needed.
I never really got into it, believe it or not.
Oh, I was a big fan.
Yeah,
I was a big fan. George Perez. Listen, wherever George Perez went, I followed.
Yeah,
that's why I was a big fan. Marv Wolfman's his stories are great. Plus, is my second favorite superhero of all time, Nightwing. I'm a big Nightwing.
Definitely enjoy a good Nightwing story.
I love me some Nightwing. I love me some Nightwing. Okay, all right. That's pretty good roster. And by the way, I love that JLA.
Yeah,
love the JLA.
That was a really good era.
I'm looking at the entire run right now on my bookshelf. I have the entire run in trade form. Actually, I might have it in singular issue form somewhere in the house too.
I had it at one point. I think I traded it in at my comic shop at one point. But I did have it at one.
Oh no, I think I have every issue somewhere in this house, probably in the basement somewhere. It's yeah, but I'm a big fan of that Justice League. Wow. Okay, so give me your 5 favorite indie books right now.
Ooh, Valkyrie Sinclair. I think their campaign just ended for issue 2. Issue 1 was good. That was my best comic of last year for Indie Comix Dispatch. So Valkyrie Sinclair, Immortal Era. I'm just going to generalize and say, of course, anything from Wingless Comics, because Brian
understood.
and some good shit. I love whenever Greg has a new is None of the Wear Spider out, and I love the way he tells those stories. Really, you can pick up any issue and just completely fall into it. You don't have to have had the previous one. Let's see, that's 4. And why is my mind going blank? I already said Immortal Era. I just got 3. Oh, Advent Comics. Anything by Advent Comics. Tony Cottrell. I love. He's got. I mean, talk about a universe. He's got some cool ass shit going on that I'm excited to see. How he keeps expanding and changing it all, evolving it all. Really, he's kind of the goal of output. I feel like dude is putting a ton of stuff out,
cranking it out. Yeah, between him, Concrete, Mike Watson, FSK.
Oh yeah,
there are quite a few guys that are just cranking out a bunch of titles, and I admire the hell out of them for that.
Oh, and Unlikely Hero Studios, they keep stuff too, like The Surgeon, and then just all their other books that they're putting out right now. Anything they put out is amazing.
I got 3 or 4 of their books just kind of sitting on my stack of books that I need to get to.
I got that too. My desk is right over there, and I'm like, shit. Here's my stack.
Yeah, and then I made the mistake of. So again, like you, I like graphic novels. I like trades. So I found a new series to read in trade form. It's not a new series, but I find another series to read. Astro City.
Oh, I think I've heard of it.
Astro City by Kurt Busiek. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. and I'm like,
That's
I
awesome.
saw like I bought it for my birthday, and it was like they have 3 trades, and I'm like, completionist in me, and so now I got the first trade. Now I got to go buy the next trade. They got me.
That's awesome.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, most of the people you said, I've read something or another from them, and I'm right there with you. They do some great stuff.
Good
I'm
stuff.
hoping that I can eventually get to their level where my book is on the same start of immediately when people talk about their best stuff. But
Yeah,
they've been doing it. A lot of them, they've been doing it longer than I have. So I always respect that. All right, so let me get your opinion on, because it's a big hot button topic in the creative realm right now.
Okay.
The of AI. What is your opinion on it, and like how does it impacted you and what you're doing?
At first I thought, when it first rolled out, I thought this is just a tool. This is a tool, and capitalism is gonna capitalism, and they're gonna crank up the cost of it, and it will never be a good tool making comic books. I still kind of believe it's not a good tool for making comic books. But as the AI continues to evolve, and more questions about the ethicalness of how it sourced its art that it trained off of, and all that arise, I gotta say, if I'm not personally supporting, is either written by AI, because AI scripts kind of suck, and I'm definitely not supporting any that the art comes from. I think there's just too many questions right now, and I know there are some new ones starting to pop up where it's ethically sourced art that it's been trained on, and that's kind of moving forward. But I just don't think, like, when I flip through the pages of issue 2 of Immortalis, I can't imagine not having a reading those panels. Like, it's the human touch. It's Marcos's take on it that really makes the book. Of course, I think the writing's great personally, but it's his humanness and the way he's interpreting my panel descriptions that sing along with the story, and I just can't imagine getting that out of AI. So all the ethical questions aside, I don't think it's a good storytelling right now. I think maybe someday, and then we're going to be facing this question for years, because there's going to continue to be new AI. There's going to continue to be new trained on art, and I'm glad Kickstarter recently said that you have to put a label on it if you're using AI writing or art within any project. I think that's the right move, because that way people who do support it. I personally, for the time being and for the foreseeable future, will not be supporting AI generated comic books.
Awesome. Go ahead, Jamar.
See, I was listening to the AI stuff, and like the question I had in my head is kind of gone now. So do you think that? See, I get a little worried about the AI thing. I work in education, so I have different thoughts on where that part is going to go. But in the creation process, do you think it could possibly help in terms of editing or anything like that? Not the full process itself.
Not right now. Chat is decent, but I don't think it could really help in the editing process. Where I see it helping right now in a good way is giving prompts, like having us say, give me 10 writing prompts that I could work on, and maybe you develop a story out of one of those prompts. I'm a big believer in writing every day whenever you can to keep that practice up, and so I think that the prompts are phenomenal if you use them in the right way. The prompts that it generates with GPT in particular, but you know, my day job is part of my day job is being editor-in-chief of a magazine, and so have to do to edit articles is what Chat GPT will out. It's more work right now.
Okay. All right. Well, I told you I was going to get you off, and I'm going to get you off with some time because I know you got some things to do in your personal life. Plus, you got 7 kids. I mean,
got 7 kids.
Oh, do any of them want to follow in your footsteps? Have they shown interest?
To what? What was the last?
Have any of them shown interest in or shown that they wanted to follow in your footsteps down this path?
My oldest daughter, I don't know that she would follow in the path to a comic book, but she is super supportive and she loves telling stories and she loves and creating art herself. I don't know that she sequential art as a medium of telling those stories, but she definitely wants to write and tell stories. So we have 7, and so we have 3 teenagers and then 4 little kids. And so the 4 little ones are the ones that I'm writing Amelia and the Orc about. And they all think it's really cool that Dad's making a comic book and telling stories. And so right now I could see a few of them wanting to. No, they're still all pretty young though. So we'll kind of see as they get older where that passion falls. Because I do believe it has to be a passion.
Awesome. So we're winding down. I want to give you the opportunity one more time to tell people about anything you got coming up, your Kickstarter. This is the time to go.
So yeah, Kickstarter drops on Tuesday, probably 9 a.m. Eastern time. And it's for the 2nd issue of Immortalis, which is a historical fantasy book about the fall of Constantinople that also helps tell the tale of the early Wingless Comics universe. So there's a lot of fantasy. There's a lot of occult stuff happening. There's supernatural stuff happening. And it's just a good fallen city war battle book. And if nothing else, I hope that you will at least check out the campaign page, take a look over and decide for yourself what you think.
Okay, all right, everybody, get the go ahead, get to the notify link. It's right here, scrolling. Got to get to it, got to support, and we're looking forward to it. And thank you again for coming on the show. And I have to stop clapping. We appreciate you coming on the show, and like I said, we'll keep on the lookout for you. If you have anything else that you want to talk to about us and promote, let us know, and we'll definitely have you back on.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity of being here, and I know hosting it's both fun and a burden, and so thank you for taking this on and having me tonight. I really appreciate it.
No problem. See, I'm going to come on your show and start trouble. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come on your show and start some trouble.
I like
Let's do it. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming by for another episode of a Stoked podcast. Can't wait to see you next week. Our guest will be, we don't know yet who our guest will be. We will figure that out this week. And like I said next week, I will be at Plastic City Comic-Con. Come by, say hi.
Harass him, please. Send me the
harass
stories.
me with money. That's what, if you want to harass me, you can harass me with money. Y'all have a great weekend, and I will see you later.